Hey, good morning, everybody. Mike Shea, your Florida business broker. Today's topic is we're going to talk about why you don't tell employees that you're for sale. So, in the last, month or so, I've had two sellers who had really close relationships with employees. And, let's talk about the first one. The first one was a seller. The second one is someone I just took on as a seller. Um, First one had an employee, been there a long time. He felt this unmitigating need to disclose to his employee that he was selling and wanted the employee approval of the buyer, if you could believe it. Um, and long story short, the employee said, I'm not working for anybody else. Now, what puts a real twist on this is the seller in this case is an immigrant who wants to retire and return to another country. And the employee has in essence put a stop to his retirement. Which really twisted me was the perception that this guy was a good guy and he was helping him and he had some unmitigated loyalty to him. And yet this employee was stifling his ability to transition to the next stage of his life and take out what frankly was a huge amount of money for his retirement and stopped it from occurring. It was a full price offer and killed the deal immediately. The second one was a gentleman who was referred to me, and I offered him some advice. He was doing a for sale by owner, selling it on his own. He had a buyer, told me the price he had, and I said, frankly, you should take that deal, but I think you need to get counsel. And I pointed him in the right direction, had breakfast there a couple times, and good things. And the guy did an LOI, the buyer did an LOI, and this is a small business, under $500,000. We don't do letters of intent on businesses under $500,000. And then he did the second mistake, which was letting the prospective buyer come into the restaurant, meet employees, and observe and just generally disrupt. And the seller was trying to be helpful, trying to be open, but the buyer, at the end of the day, had some unrealistic expectations about the lease assignment, and the deal died. So now the employees have gone through a process where they've been exposed to another prospect, another buyer, a buyer, and there's a level of doubt that's planted in their heads about what's going to happen now. Generally we think that's a bad idea. In all the transactions I've ever done, I really don't see problems in employee transitions. Where we see problems in employee transitions is when there's fundamental flaws in the business, like revenue concentration or relationships tied to accounts or just unethical people involved. But that should be discovered through the due diligence process and a good query by accountants, counsel, and buyers of sellers. And if you're smart enough to get a broker, then you get a good one. The circumstances of exposing employees to the sale now has planted in a couple of employees ideas that they can buy the business. And the reality is that if, in the restaurant sector, you may be the right buyer from an experience standpoint, but they're generally unaware of what it takes from a capital standpoint to get a business loan. They're really, really hard to do. There's a YouTube video in my stack on what's required, 20% down. You got significant closing costs. If you're working as a restaurant worker making 30, 40 grand, piecing together, 50 grand down payment plus collateralizing your home and then plus closing costs is not a simple task and can be daunting if attempted without, real full disclosure and understanding of all the hanging chads and what's involved in the process. So imagine you're that business owner and this employee who now knows you're for sale comes to you and wants to buy it, and they're a key employee, and you say they don't have the money to do it. That's a tough conversation, and it puts the owner of the business in an awkward scenario where now they have to say, hey, basically you can't afford it. And then oftentimes people play upon emotions of, hey, I need you to, finance the whole deal, which that's another video for another time. But you end up more often than not getting a disgruntled employee. and that disgruntled employee talks and creates chaos and problems for you in an operation you have yet sold, all because you have felt some need to tell people something that isn't any of their business. Whether a business sells or not is not the interest of the employees. It is, and it is not in their interest to disclose that it is being sold. It's a bad idea on every front. And I'd love to hear comments and ideas as to why. I mean, as a buyer, you think I want to have stable employees, but the reality is, if an employee's been someplace, unless you go in and change things dramatically or make the culture, upside down, then you're going to have sticky employees and they're going to stick. Gone are the days of Gordon Gekko where we're gutting organizations. And if we're gutting organizations, sometimes you're gutting organizations that have fat in order to create survivability. I hate to draw upon that, that speech that Gekko does in the movie Wall Street, but there's some legitimacy to those types of circumstances, but that's another topic. So do not, under any circumstances, disclose that a business is for sale, ever. Don't advertise that it's for sale other than through a confidential mechanism. Make sure you have the protocols in place. Don't tell employees. It just doesn't help them. It doesn't help you. And the lingering effects of that disclosure can be massive. If you want to talk about this, 321-287-0349, or text me at that same number, or you can email me at mike@tworld.com. Have a good day.